Hey everyone, I was waiting for Strider to unlock on Steam this week, and the way Steam works, you know, you have to wait until the publishers unlock it. There's not just kind of like a storefront update. So while I was passing the time for that to happen, I decided to load up this kind of weird-looking game that came through my inbox called NaissanceE. I believe that's how you pronounce it, but I could be making it sound way more pretentious than it actually is. Which, hey, whatever. That lines up with my MO. And this game's got a capital E, so I suppose we can go ahead and let it be pretentious as much as it wants to. But why don't we go ahead and load up the first save I've got. There's no way to start a brand new game, so I can't show you the intro. But it's a first-person exploration game, I guess would be the best way to describe it. That has a really... If you notice I'm jittering, that's because it was loading the next section, and that just kind of happens naturally. But it has a really unsettling atmosphere. You don't have any guns. The 2.5 hours or so that I've played involves no characters, and yet similarly to I suppose Gone Home. It's not a game similar to Gone Home, except for the fact that, you know, they both might be tagged as walking simulators on Steam. But let's see if I can make my way down. They're both games that have really creepy atmospheres to them. Looks like I'm okay. Where, you know, after I've played for 2 hours or so, it gets pretty clear that I'm not going to run into any enemies, and yet constantly as I'm going around, you know, maybe as a function of me playing in the dark, I just felt like something was going to find me at some point. So I can hold shift and run, a mouse click, sort of a breathing mechanic so you can maintain a rhythm. If you let that go, you'll start to see that starts to run out of breath, but I can get that back. What really struck me about this is the architecture. Just look at this thing, and this is really just the tip of the iceberg, and I'm hoping to get to some of the more striking stuff that you find early on in the game. The game is largely sort of black and white, but that changes over the course of the game itself. And you spend a lot of time interacting with little orbs like this that change direction based on when you touch them. Allow you to illuminate different parts of the environment. I kind of just fumbled my way through this section. I can't remember how exactly I found my way out. I'm looking for an exit alongside a wall. Here we go. I think what was giving me the heebie-jeebies when I was playing it before was the sense of isolation that you have while playing the game that is enhanced by the very stark, simplistic visuals and the few times that the game decides to employ music. They almost strike me as what you would see in a 70s sci-fi film. I feel like I'm exploring the remains of a derelict ship that would be featured in something like Alien. It's altogether too clean, too pristine, which just suggests that something went horribly, horribly wrong, but at no point are you actually being stalked by a creature. So it's more, you know, my imagination suggesting that there's potentially more there than there actually is. Mechanically speaking, a lot of what happens in the game is some stuff like this. I mean, it changes, but this is what happens maybe in the first bits of the game, where there's light and dark, and you can always move onto platforms even if you can't see them, but you are waiting for the way light shines to allow you passage onward. But I often just found myself just staring into the various abysses in this game, just oftentimes slightly frustrated that there's platforming in the game, because a lot of it is not particularly great. I don't think I'm going to get into any of the sequences that really end up frustrating me here. These ones are pretty early and pretty simple, but there are some later on that were just driving me nuts. And furthermore, the game has very limited controller support. It's not sort of officially sanctioned. You go into the control options and it's not exactly mentioned, but in the Steam support forums they said, hey, you can just plug in a 360 controller and it'll be okay, except that when I did that, if you kind of flick left on the analog stick, it resulted in your player just getting stuck moving to the left, which would be, you know, something you could deal with if there were no consequences for your movement, but this is a game in which you are doing and engaging in some platforming. Ooh. So you get these moments where all the light has disappeared and it's just genuinely creepy. You're just kind of sitting in the dark. The game does a good job of, generally speaking, communicating where to head next. It is often, you know, communicated through the light. Just kind of head over to that next area, and usually there's always kind of, yeah, you can see. Okay, let's head over there. Yeah, this is another thing that exists at certain points of the game. You'll touch these cubes and everything just becomes very bright. Just look at the shadows it creates. They're just, man, like lots of scenes in this game could just very easily be background wallpaper. In fact, a couple of times I've thought to do exactly that and put it on my iPad or something like that. There's no dialogue. You know, you're clearly playing as a human character. It's not like the game is pretending you aren't a human avatar. It's sometimes it feels like you can actually see your body when you. Oh, dang it! Stuck in the darkness. So you know, this is still kind of tutorializing a little bit. Just trying to teach you. How to do the extended jumps. I don't think I need to worry about the breathing here, actually. I should be able to make it. Missed the last one. Seems like the gaps were different that time. See, this gets like a very almost grainy quality to it, and that's kind of what I meant by the 70s aesthetic, and what, you know, makes me think of you know, specifically Alien in particular. During the sequences where they're inside the ship on on the planet they've gone to visit, which provides a stark contrast to the twisted, weird alien logic that is prevalent in the planet they're exploring. So there's sort of a level of comfort, but also a level of discomfort that goes along with that as well. But obviously this doesn't quite hit on that, because there's a lot of this that seems highly illogical, and nothing that seems to be created for a human to be habitating in. Okay, here's one of the first big sequences in the game. We actually may encounter one of the first annoying puzzle platforming sequences as well, which I believe is over here. No. It's on the other side. There's like sort of simple puzzles that mix up, just sort of like your normal exploration, as you start to kind of figure out what the mechanics of the world are necessarily. It does feel like you can figure out quite a bit of it through trial and error. You can kind of see the basic concepts of light impacts those little sections in a way that allow you to pass through some of it, but run into solid objects in other cases. Solid. Oh, I think I just screwed that up. Yep. So once I've triggered that, now I've caused some alterations to happen over there, which should unlock the next sequence for me to move through. You can fall from certain heights and hurt yourself, but you regenerate your health, and never seems to cause all too much pain. Missing something. Oh, I need to be up there. Ooh. So let's see if I alter this. Move that. Avoid touching that. Should be on the second floor, and then be able to move through this second area. I found that these little light puzzles are largely can be navigated through trial and error. You get confused on some of the logic, but they're also pretty fun to mess around with as well. And the game doesn't rely on any set of puzzle logic for too long before moving on to a new one. Although I found later on it definitely relies maybe a little too much on platforming. Okay, so I've gone ahead and turned that on. Try and find my way down. Often a lot of what's happening in the game is a function of, hey, you're up here, get down there. There's a lot of navigating environmental spaces. And right up here will be one of the first really frustrating sequences I had. I'll probably be able to get it pretty well now that it's my second time. You know, a lot of it's just kind of keeping calm, hitting the breathing parts. There is a certain pleasing rhythm to getting all of these components. I'm actually now doing it this time, now that I've kind of got it down. This is actually pretty enjoyable. It's just some of the sequences later that I had some trouble with, although maybe some of that can be attributed to playing it late at night, 12:30 in the morning. You know, you do a certain sequence X number of times, and at some point you're not really engaging with what you should be doing and mostly just getting frustrated at what you haven't been doing. Man, look at that. How is that not so freaking cool? And how is that not completely terrifying? So we'll go a little bit further because I think this will that sort of completes sort of the first little section of the game. I'm not sure what that means. Seems like we kind of passed out. Possibly a limited narrative component of the game. You know, I've played further in and I have not found a whole lot more narrative-wise. It seems all inferred. But yeah, here we go. This is kind of your second sequence in which you get a real different look at a completely different kind of environment, but just definitely got an Escher painting sort of look that just seems to go on and on and on and on. And like, why is this here? Why would this be constructed in that way? And it's entirely possible the game has no interest in answering those questions. And maybe they're not important. Maybe they're just here to be weird and to be fun and to be engaging. But the more I've gone, the more I can't help but think about it a little bit, and that gave me a little bit of a terrifying vertigo. You can see a little bit more of the environment that you actually traverse. You actually have to get all the way down here, and that's down there is the next section of the game. But as this is often, you know, basically a puzzle experience, I really don't want to show too much more. I definitely wanted to give a sense of how the aesthetic changes, yet keeps its sort of like the same sort of vibe going forward. And it's Naissance. It's out on Steam now. It's $17.99, so it's definitely not cheap. It will be $19.99 once it's off its sale. I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but it's interesting. I wish the platforming mechanics were handled better. I think it is more of a function of the layout than it actually is the platforming feel itself. The controller support is weird and was frustrating because I was trying to play this on my TV to appreciate the visuals in a way that doesn't come across as much on a monitor. But yeah, if you're looking for something different, this is it. And boy, is it fantastic looking. Sounds great. If you can put it with some of the platforming, I think you'll be rewarded with something that will produce terrifying feelings like this every time that you fall through. That is Naissance, and it is out right now.